TOEFL writing mistake number one is that you use unfamiliar vocabulary. So this problem might be an issue for you, that you feel like you need to use more complicated vocabulary, that your vocabulary is too simple, and if you only knew a few more words, some more complicated vocabulary, your score would improve. This could be true, but one thing that happens often is that people will start using unfamiliar vocabulary. Let me give you an example. So if it's too simple, you see this sentence, learning plays an important role in life. And you're like, okay, this is a bit too simple. Let me see if I can write this a bit fancier. And you'll maybe do some Googling and you'll find this rewrite, this paraphrase that says, intellectual fortitude envelops each and every facet of our sentient experience. So now this might be a bit too complicated. You want to make sure that you understand the vocabulary you're using. Intellectual fortitude, sentient experience. These are things that are pretty rare vocabulary, and you might not be confident using it. So you want to be confident using the words that you're going to write down. So a good middle ground is trying to do some small differences that you understand but aren't too difficult for you. So for example, education plays a critical role in all aspects of life. So instead of role, you say critical role instead of important, and instead of life, you say aspects of life. So a little bit more complicated, but not too crazy fancy, right? So that's a good middle ground. The second writing mistake I see often is that you copy what was already stated. Now this is for the new TOEFL writing question number 2. So this is going to change on July 26th. You'll get a question that looks like this. It's called Writing for an Academic Discussion. And one big thing in the directions, I've circled it in red here. It says, make a contribution to the discussion in your own words. So in other words, you have to contribute. You have to add to the conversation. If you just copy what this guy Sam or this girl Allie wrote, you're not going to get a very good score. You need to add to the conversation. So when it's time to write, I've circled in red where I mentioned what Sam said, but I add to it. So I'll read this part where it says, however, I have to admit that Sam makes a good point, okay? It is much harder to form strong bonds with people who do not share the same physical space. I have tried at my current job from my home office, and Zoom meetups are just not enough to get close to someone. Okay, so you see how I give my own personal example. Zoom meetups at my own job. I don't just copy what Sam said. I add to the discussion and I write more about it. If you want to know more about this question, I'll put a link to a guide to the new TOEFL writing question number 2. All right, next one. You leave after you finish writing. So again, the new test coming out in July of 2023 is shorter. It's only 2 hours. The test used to be 4 hours, like in 2015, and then it was shortened to 3 hours, and now it's 2 hours. So the test is pretty short, but it's still long. I mean, 2 hours is a long time. And by the end, you might start feeling tired, you want to go home, you've been doing this test for a while and your just brain hurts from all the English. So a lot of people, when they write their essay, writing an essay takes thought. It's hard to do. And when you're finished, you're relieved. You're like, oh, yes, finished. I can go home. Wait. So that's what I mean here is take your time at the end to edit. You don't want to leave right after you finish writing. Okay, you don't want to just move on to the next question. Be sure to give yourself a few minutes to edit. This is crucial. So I know you're happy that you finished your writing, but take a minute to edit. Now, why is this so important? Because if you look here, this is an example of question 2, the new question number 2, and there are some mistakes, but these are hard to see. Why are they hard to see? Because there's no spell check. There's no spell check on the TOEFL. There's actually about 12 typos and misspellings here. So that's why it's important to have a few minutes to edit so you can read this closely. You can pause this and try to find all 12 mistakes, but this is common. You don't see the grammar and spelling mistakes like you do when you use the computer every day. but this is what I copied and pasted it into Google Docs or something like that, and you could see there's some spaces missing, there's some misspellings, and so it's really easy to see when we're at home and practicing on our own with spell check, but on test day, it'll be a lot harder. So take your time and edit at the end. Check your spelling. And also, one of the best ways to improve your score is to enroll in the TOEFL Emergency Premium course. We have study plans for this premium course. You can finish it in 2 days if you're in a hurry, or up to 1 month. There's at least 6 TOEFL tests to practice with that are not included on YouTube, totally different tests here, and they're all for the new version of the TOEFL IBT. So check that out. Only for the YouTube audience, $67 for all the courses. There's tips and tricks and strategies, practice tests, all that stuff, everything included. This is great for anybody who just has to prepare in less than a month. If you have more than a month, maybe it's not a great fit, but this is pretty much 1 month, 2 months at the most. This is perfect for you, especially if you just have a few days. This is the way so you don't have to waste your time. You know exactly what to do every day. Study plans are included. So check it out, TOEFL Emergency Course Premium. And I'll put a link in the description below to that page. All right, so TOEFL writing mistakes. Number 4, you include outside information. So this is for question number 1. Question number 1 is the integrated writing, where you have to read a passage, and then you have to listen to a talk about the passage, and then you have to write. This is what it'll look like on test day. After you listen to the passage, the reading will come back, and you see it here on the left side. And there will be a timer counting down, and you can type in that blank space. Now, the big thing is that since you can see the reading passage, you don't want to copy what's from the reading, right? You have to be able to paraphrase. You have to be able to say the same thing a different way. Very important for integrated writing. So make sure that you do that. The question is always the same. Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they cast doubt on the specific points made in the reading. Make sure you don't copy from the reading. The listening, it's something you heard and you took notes on, so that's fine. Just write down what you remember. But the reading, you have to make sure that you paraphrase a little bit. It's very important. All right, last mistake. You mix up verb tenses. Let's see which verb tenses you should use for each question type. So, pretty simple. Simple present, simple past, present perfect. There will be times where you use different verb tenses. You might have to. This happens. Conditional sentences, future tense. But most of the time, you're going to just use simple past, simple present, or present perfect. An example here from a question about work environments. So this is for question 2. And as you can see, present perfect has become, I prefer, I have worked. So I'm using present or present perfect. And then I have, I remember, I was afraid. So there's past. I didn't highlight all the verbs, but I highlighted a bunch of them. You can see at the end I had a conditional sentence. If I had to choose, I would opt for. You don't have to do that, but it's okay to have these verb tenses. And you can see here too for integrated writing, is, no, compiled, has been, is, so present perfect. Now, you might be wondering, Josh, isn't grammar part of your score? Shouldn't I use complicated grammar to actually get a high score on the test? Well, one good thing ETS recently released is that they give scoring, AI scoring, for practice writing for question number 2, for the new question number 2, writing for an academic discussion. I'll put a link in the description to this free practice. You can type it out. But one thing about this practice and this grading is that they don't grade you on content, on what you write, but they grade you on your vocabulary and grammar and organization and how you write your response. So what I did was, I'll show you here really quickly. So I went to ETS's site. You can see it here. I'll put a link in the description to this question. And this question is about, should teachers be evaluated based on their students' test scores? But I put in a response about remote work. So you see here, I wrote just what I just showed you basically with my simple verb tenses, present tense, present perfect tense, past tense, simple past. And I submitted it to see what the score would be. And as you can see, I got a 5.0. So it's not going to tell me exactly what I did, and it's not going to check the content, but it checks the vocabulary, the grammar, the structure, and gave me a really high score, even though my grammar was pretty simple. If you do this and you find you need more feedback, you might want to check out our website, tstprep.com. We have teachers, courses, classes, and writing evaluations so you can talk to a teacher if you need more feedback on your writing. But definitely check out ETS's free tool. I'll put a link to it. But that's it. Those are the 5 mistakes. Try to avoid them on test day to make sure you score well, and use some of these tools, some of these resources to help you practice and get feedback on your writing. If you need more help, then I recommend this video here where you're going to learn how to improve your TOEFL writing by 3 points, and I show you how to do that with some online new AI tools. So check that out, and that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.